Hello and welcome to another Gaming with Killatia. Today we take a look at the hit JRPG for the Xbox 360, Tales of Vesperia. Before we start this review, I want to give out another spoiler warning for Tales of Vesperia. I'll try to keep it down to a minimum, but there are some elements in the story that I really want to talk about. And the second thing is, just like with Tales of Symphonia, Tales of Vesperia were ported over to the PlayStation 3 over in Japan. Now, unlike the port from GameCube to PS2 with Symphonia, there are a lot of changes to the PS3 version, so here's a quick small list of them scrolling across the screen. As you can probably tell, it looks more like a remake than just a regular port. So anyways, enough about that, let us talk about the Xbox version of Tales of Vesperia. The people rely on an ancient technology known as Blastia, which powers everything in their society, from ships to protecting gigantic cities from monstrous attacks. They can even be used to enhance one's ability through the use of Bode Blastia. And it's the powers that these mysterious Blastias can potentially have is what drives a mysterious force to steal them all across the world and use them for their own nefarious deeds. On paper, Vesperia's storyline sounds pretty epic, but there's a few things in the story that just holds it back from being as good as Symphonia. One of my big complaints about the story is that there's a lot of cliché elements to it. For example, there are corrupt leaderships within the Empire government simply because there hasn't been a real emperor within the past 10 years. Speaking of which, I don't think there should be a reason why the Empire shouldn't have an emperor for that long of time. Then you have the princess, who refuses to return to the castle until she finds out who she really is. Speaking of which, her reveal as a princess is pretty lackluster in my opinion. Another problem I have with the storylines are the side stories. For example, you find a kid tucked away in a dungeon, away from his mommy and daddy, scared of what might happen to him. And how does this simple side story end? By simply telling the kid to go one off the mommy and daddy once they get out of the dungeon. Now I understand that the heroes are always on the run to stop the bad guys, but when this happens like 2 more times later on in the game, I just kinda wish these side stories were much more developed when it comes to the endings. Despite the gripes with the storyline, it's still a pretty good story. The story develops nicely, aside from a few side stories, and the characters are developed pretty damn well in my opinion. Especially enjoy the chemistry between Yuri and Princess Estelise. I mean, they developed so well together that I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't become a couple by the end of the game. My least favorite character though has to be Carol. Now I understand he's a kid, he's not the person to know any better, but it's still kinda hard to like him when he does stupid shit like this.
What's with that kid? A fire? I don't hear anything or smell anything. Hey, you little liar.
Of course they were gonna catch on, you freaking idiot. There was no fire in the first place. The graphics in Tales of Vesperia are absolutely gorgeous. The world map is absolutely much more detailed than in Tales of Symphonia, though you kinda expect it to be when it released on the Xbox 360. The character and the monster models are so well detailed, it feels like they were taken straight out of an anime and put right into the video game. The dungeons and the cities are also very detailed, although there are some places that are pretty well detailed to the point that I really wanted to explore that part of the city, but simply put could not because of restrictions. The music fits the game very well, and the voice actors do a pretty decent job. However, I just kinda wish they picked somebody else to do Carol voice. I don't know, he does sound too annoying to me. The combat is exactly what you expect from a Tales game. It plays like a fighting game, but still feels like you're playing an RPG with all sorts of spells and different abilities at your fingertips. Probably the most notable change in the combat is that you can be attacked by multiple groups of monsters instead of just one group at a time. It does make the battles much more intense, but the rewards are even greater than before. Despite some shortcomings in the story department, I would still recommend Tales of Vesperia for fans of the series and for fans of role-playing games in general.
Is that really all you did just now?
My rating for Tales of Vesperia is a solid B. This is Killatia signing off, and I hope to see you next time.
This town from the monsters?
This town has no use for a barrier.
They're bouncing. What are you looking at? I wish I could bounce.